Good morning, everyone. I have the great privilege this afternoon, of speaking with Draza Smith. She was one of the first individuals to break the story on the crime of the century. She stayed up all night. She watched how the election went, and I caught her evaluation of that election early on when she did an interview with Professor Mike Clements. She was the first to rattle our cage and scream, "Wake up, everybody. It's time to act like free men again." We were all asleep, and now we are awake, and we're going to hear more from her today. Welcome, Draza. Such a great privilege to be with you today.
Thank you for having me.
So, I don't know, just maybe a starter question. So we have, and you can take this wherever you want, but we have all of this massive fraud that's been uncovered in these swing states. And our current secretary somehow seems to think that the bad actors who perpetrated that fraud ran into the Nebraska border and bounced off of it. And we're immune to election fraud in this state. Our elections are free and fair, and I've run it to ground. There's no fraud in this state. What would be your answer to that claim?
So I come from a math and science background, so I really don't like to speak from anything that I can't back up with data. So what I have done is I've done an analysis of elections in the past. And I went back as far as Nixon and Kennedy, and I looked at the ratio of winner to loser votes in all the states. And if you order up the states in order of their ratio, so you go from largest to smallest, winner to loser, they make this beautiful, nice, smooth curve. So if we are moving towards a place where some of the states are being modulated so that they're being shifted away from their natural opinion, that would show up as step changes on these nice smooth curves. So therefore it becomes imperative, in order to keep that curve from looking like there's manipulation, to provide at least a small amount of manipulation everywhere. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing in the curve that as we progress over time, that curve changes a little bit and then smooths back out as we get the machines in. So it looks like this ballot stuffing has been happening to us since about 1996 with the inflation of the voter rolls and the ballot stuffing, and it's just been optimized as we added the machines in place.
And so why did things get so bad in 2020? Why? I mean, I've got my explanation, but how would you so was it Trump forcing them to out themselves, or?
So partially, but partially what they did to themselves as well. I mean, everyone around the nation watched the Democratic primaries. And we watched as there was real support for Bernie Sanders, there was real support for Elizabeth Warren, real support for Tulsi Gabbard, and you watched them all fall by the wayside, and Biden became the
president-elect,
chosen
candidate
for the Democratic Party. And the majority of the people that I know, my friends that are Democrat, they were like, well, we hate Trump, so we can't vote for him, so we're going to vote for this guy. It was not that this was the chosen person of the people. And then we just watched the same thing progress through the general election as well. So this was whoever is in control of this, what I call the election racketeering machine, because it's not just the machines, it's the ballots, it's the mail-in, it's the inflated voter rolls, it's what we're going to see, the people, the American citizens willing to sell us out to be these ballot mules. That was heartbreaking. This whole machine together to move the elections away from the will of the people and towards the will of the people that have the money.
Yeah. So this is jumping ahead, but we can always back up. So what would you consider as the best evidence to date? Would you say it's the True the Vote work that's coming out with under the 2,000 mules?
Okay, so best depends on the audience. Okay.
Okay.
Because we've got best when we show the statistical control within the actual machines. We've got best when we show the NGOs that have active day access to the state voter rolls all over the nation and can modify at will the Secretary of State's electronic voter rolls consolidated among all the counties in one stop location. We can show best data when we see the laws that have been written with specific intent to allow the cheat. Mm-hmm. But what True the Vote is providing with these videos of the mules is probably the most easily consumed. So not only is it best from the idea that it, like the others, it truly shows what's been happening to us. When you see the True the Vote data and you see that these people, this was not a one-time thing where people went around to their neighbors and were nice and gathered up all of the votes and took the ballots in for them. These were people who signed up for a job and showed up at the same location every morning, and there was a tray waiting for them with the votes to take around to the different precincts with the right number of votes and the right percentage for that day to stuff into the ballot to control every precinct in these urban areas. That's going to be heartbreaking to people to understand that this was a racketeering venture by people printing the ballots, people about what we call ballot factories, people filling them out, signing the envelopes, people picking them up and transporting them. This is going to be very easy to consume by the average person who understands how the ballot stuffing works. Taking that a bit forward and looking at the electronic optimization in the machines we've been able to see from the cast vote records and disk images that we have available. But that's harder for the people that are not as technically minded to be able to, or technically educated to be able to understand. But we can understand these people cheating the rest of us by stuffing the ballot box.
Okay, great answer. Thank you. So how would you explain to us how election result reporting takes place on election day and include Nebraska in that?
Wow, I wish I could. We've actually worked with grassroots groups and done our own communications, those of us that are doing research with these companies, with Edison, Cyto, Clarity Elections, all of these companies that present the data of what's going on inside of your counties as the vote accumulates, to find out how they collect this data and present it over time. The problem is that it's never very clear. We see these updates on the screen. We're sitting at home, we're watching the news, and the news reporter goes, "Oh, we're about to get another update from Pennsylvania. We're about to get another update from Nebraska." And you watch the votes accumulate over time. And when you go back and you say, "Okay, Mr. County Clerk, how does your data get out of your machine to the Secretary of State, for the Secretary of State to report these interim data points?" And frequently we cannot find a path. So it leads us to question over whether or not our state endpoints are predetermined and some sort of calculated progression is displayed to us as a video over time, over the evening, so that we don't suspect that anything wrong happened and we don't question the results. It's a terrifying thought, but I truly think that there may be something to that.
So just the idea that our results are being reported over time, I mean, that right there says that everything's connected.
Well, so here's the thing that's just been bothering me. It makes me crazy. It's like when you have a child, right? And you ask him if he took the blue crayon, right? And he stands there and just swears to you he didn't take it because he took the red one. He knows what you're asking for, right? But because you don't use the exact right words, he can bold-faced lie to you, essentially, right? And then in his psyche claim that he's not telling a lie. There are different types of communication in computer technology that we discuss, and not what people want to know. The real question that they want to know is if the device that's counting my vote at the clerk's office has the ability to communicate electronic data regarding the vote to a machine off-site. Mm-hmm. Now, if this is configured in a private tunnel or a private connection, and even if it's using the same network pathways that the internet uses, I cannot from that machine go out and go shopping at, some web store that's on the internet. So because I can't route to Google and I can't route to Amazon and I can't route to these other places that are internet fronted, they claim that it is not on the internet, when that's not the question that we're really asking. We're asking if we have remote communication. And even if we have remote communication that's over cellular or through VPN tunnels, that's the problem that we're looking for, that's been skirted by these companies with intentional malfeasance, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, that's a common claim of the current secretary. Every time he gives a little spiel about ESNS machines, oh, and by the way, they're not connected to the internet. I mean, that's just a mantra. I mean, and we know that that's an official government propaganda campaign. They're not connected to the internet, and November 3rd was the most secure election in U.S. history. That's an official, and in the very next sentence, they say we are still verifying results. And this is within 9 days of the election. So it's a propaganda campaign.
Not only are they still verifying results, but we're constantly passing new laws to improve our elections. And if we were convinced that this was the most secure and proper election, why would every single state in the nation be in such a hurry to change it?
Thank you. I've made that exact same point here locally, because he claims, the incumbent again, claims that our elections are free and fair and there's no fraud, but yet he's pushing for certain election integrity bills, which implies that we don't have election integrity. So which is it? Yeah. Which is it? Is it secure or is it not?
It depends on the use of the word. So here's the way that I use the word. The system was in place so that the election of Joe Biden was secure, the most secure election ever.
Isn't that the truth? Well, it wasn't too secure because it's all out in the open now. Right?
There's more and more people are finding different things. It's beautiful to talk to the different groups. You have an amazing group of patriots in Nebraska that have just been working so hard to gather data to find out the things that have been done to the people of Nebraska with the inflation of the voter rolls, with the strange distribution of your precincts and election areas, all of these things that especially set up your special electoral vote as a prime area to be stolen. Yeah. So that puts Nebraska in a very unique state, that for a smaller amount of effort, they could steal an electoral college vote. Which makes Nebraska of more interest than possibly some of the other Midwestern states.
Mm-hmm. And explain that a little further. Why would that make us of interest more than some other Midwestern states?
Because if we're adding up electoral college votes, if I go next door to Kansas, I have to handle the entire state to win any electoral college votes. Where if Nebraska, I come and I focus just on your special district there, I could get one with a smaller amount of effort than having to focus on the entire state.
Okay, so I recently listened to a speech by the incumbent wherein he made the claim that our elections are fair and secure, and the evidence of that is that Trump won. And then he will turn around and say that he stick his foot in his mouth and give at least 6 reasons why we should distrust our elections. It's comical.
He said that Trump won, or he said that Biden won. He said that.
No, he says that his reason, he uses that as the reason to say that our elections were fair, we're honest. So I turn around and then say, no, Trump did not win. He only partly won. And besides, it's not all about Trump. It's all about all these down ballot races that affect our lives at the local level.
Winning the state. I understand. Yes, and you're exactly right. Because when I look at, I've had the ability to look at the data in Mesa County because we have the forensic image that Tina Peters released of that. When there are studies that discuss our vote fall off, where people come in and they want to vote for the highest election, like the presidency, and then a few people don't bother to vote for the Senate race, and a few people don't bother to watch, a few more people don't bother to vote for the next congressional race. Studies have been done why people do that, why they'll be all the way in the hall to do the voting, and then they don't choose to fill out the whole ballot. However, in Mesa County, there were 88,000 votes that were cast for the president. That dropped to about 84,000 for the Senate. And then we see things fall off as expected. When we get down to the House race there for the local Colorado House, we're down to 45%. Only 39,000 votes total for both candidates was cast there. We go a few more votes down and we're at the Board of Elections. We're back up to 86,000. So people were more interested in the Board of Elections vote than they were of their local House. Now, how many of those people were true citizens and how many were people that were in those ballot factories wanting to get somebody on your Board of Elections that the mules would be delivering in your drop box? So it's so important. It is not about Trump. It is not about this past presidential election. I would love to see all of the votes that were improperly swayed by these non-citizen voters, non-human voters, identity theft voters that swayed all the elections. I would love to see them all fixed.
Yeah. So we're talking a lot about the dirty voter rolls. So one of the bills that the current incumbent is trying to push through, and of course it's a good bill, is voter ID. So, but the legislature doesn't want to pass it because it's just too much of an infringement on the rights of Nebraskans to require them to go get a voter ID, right? I mean, never mind all the other infringements that we've had upon our God-given, inherent, and inalienable rights the last 2 years, right? Can't go to church, can't open your business, you can't congregate anywhere, you got to stay 6 feet apart. But infringing on that freedom to not have to, I'm being facetious. What would you consider a workaround in the absence of voter ID? My suggestion has been to, first of all, our state elections have been hijacked by a contract that the incumbent signed with ESNS, took ownership of those elections away from the counties, and then centralized it in that private, profit-driven political company. And my plan is to destroy that contract, eliminate the machines, return ownership of our elections back to our counties and to the people of the counties. And the first step, of course, is to clean up the voter registration rolls. So we bring those down to the county level and precinct level as well, and invite our fellow citizens to help clean up those rolls and tell them, this is what we want to remove dead people, we want to remove people that have moved, et cetera, et cetera. You have anything along those lines that you could offer for help?
So you're, everything that you said is like dead on and fantastic, because we've had the inflation of the voter rolls, we've had the centralization electronically of the voter rolls. So this provides a one-stop shop for people of interest of Nebraska. If they have access to your voter registration on Nebraska's voter rolls, they have access to everyone's. Taking this and putting it back at the county level, we do this all the time in technology, where we could have a database where the only users are available at the county level, and they provide a courtesy read-only copy, so the Secretary of State maintains the collective document, but there's no way to modify the county's rolls at the state level. That we have all sorts of solutions that are put in place in today's business all the time that could solve this kind of thing. But by taking that away from the county level, you increase the need for a voter ID or things like this. If you brought it back down to the county level and the county clerk had the ability to know their people again and know how many people actually lived in a certain precinct and brought it back down to that level, then it would be much more difficult to cheat. And there is the dead people, there are the people that move, there is that, but we see all kinds of things happening where things don't get cleaned up when women come in, change their name because they got married, change their name because they got divorced. People are just being created out of thin air. And each one of these methodologies to put people on your voter rolls are not the big enchilada, but when you add it all up, it's millions of people. And so this is a problem that we need to work together between the states to identify all the modes that people are being added and get them out, or start all over. Even better, start your voter rolls all over from scratch, and then get rid of your mail-in voting. And get rid of your early voting. Both of these allow for exploitation knowledge. Even with these ballot tracks companies that allow you to track where your ballot is in the mail, you're not the only one that knows where that is. The company that's doing the ballot tracks knows, and then whoever else they want to know can do that as well. So we have to get rid of the mail-in voting as well, because that takes away that human. Right.
Yep.
Even if we don't have, I'm a big proponent of the voter registration, the voter ID, don't get me wrong. But if we went back to having to have that corporeal person come in and fill out the ballot in person, then it's much easier to catch the type of cheating that would have to take place by a single person, pretending to be a different person and going from precinct to precinct. You have to have much more, it's a much higher effort than being able to digitally, just replicate these mail-in ballots and have the mules take them around and drop them off.
Yeah, I totally agree. So another thing that the incumbent did to undermine our elected franchise, which is basically a broad undermining of all of our rights, is that he used the pandemic, which he called terrifying, to sign off on mass unsupervised mail-in and drop box voting. And in fact, which is exactly what the Obama, Clinton, and Biden regimes wanted him to do, right? And I had one more thought in there. So he signs off on this, and he admits that it opens the door wide to fraud. And now we're trying to undo this. But yes, I totally agree that we need to eliminate unsupervised, no chain of custody. And the other thing I was going to say is we have 11 counties in the state where they automatically send out a ballot to every person on the voter registration roll. Is that insane or what?
That is not only insane, but it would be brilliant if one of your people in those counties could request from your ballot printer a tally of the postage that was paid for each one of those. We're finding that they can't provide that, or that the postage is small, indicating that all of them were not actually voted or actually mailed. And then get information from these people that mail them out. So they print the ballots, they print the return address on there. Where is that return address? Where are the votes that are returned aggregated, and what type of control is placed there to make sure that everyone that got mailed out got returned, that those people were removed from the voter roll, that name was not used to actually vote. These are things that we're finding everywhere that are problems, because everything I said, we find that these ballots that are returned that can't be delivered to the person because there's no one there at that address, they end up being voted as well. How does that happen? There's once you put that ballot out like that, you lose that chain of custody to know who had it to be able to send out the vote. I saw a preview just recently, again, going back to the 2000 mules, where someone was traveling with the ballots and went to put them in to the box, realized they weren't signed, and it shows her going back to her car, and you can see on the surveillance camera her signing every single one of the envelopes before she takes them out and sends them in. Where did she get all those blank envelopes?
Yeah. Okay, so we clean up the rolls, we get rid of early and drop box voting, and we require everybody to come in on election day and vote in person. There'd be a few exceptions, right? Military and legitimate shut-ins. If somebody's traveling, okay, well, come into the election office early, and you can cast your vote. But so the next step seems to me in my mind would be, how do we vote? So I'm saying, and you help me out here, I'm saying we use currency grade, counterfeit proof, randomly serialized ballots to vote on. Is that a good idea?
I have my own. I think that your whole process needs to be evaluated. Okay.
Yes.
Because if your process relies on you having that kind of paper, that kind of structure, there's a certain cost associated with that. If your process is being developed so that you generate some sort of precinct derived hash at the time of voting, that they add up, you run it through something that looks at all your votes and comes up with a hash plus of all those votes plus the time that can put a mark, thus making that particular ballot identifiable to you in the future. There's a bunch of things that can happen, but the thing is that something needs to be put in place that prevents people from just Xerox copying ballots and putting them in. If we have problems with our ballot printers, however, understand that if there's been questions about the AES and the Runbacks and these types of companies and what they've been doing, if they're willing to print extra ballots, then you can undermine that system as well. So there needs to be a lot of our best brains putting their efforts into the whole process, and just having a different type of paper won't be a complete solution, but it's much better than what we have now.
Okay. Now you're a fan of manual count?
I'm a big fan of manual count.
at the precinct level, we've got small precincts here in Nebraska, so we can do this, right?
I don't see a problem with that. Colonel Sean Smith of USCIP, he's been doing a fantastic job to help people get started on this, not to dictate a process, but to provide groundwork for you to take for the procedures. Because we were talking, and one of the things that he mentioned is that when you go to manual counting, now you've got people involved, right? And if you're counting and you have two people that disagree about something, how do you handle the disagreement, which was something you didn't have in your machine counting environment, right? So having the procedures in place on what to do if these things happen are important to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So he's been doing that. I highly recommend people that are considering going to hand counts to go and at least look at that and see if that's something that you want to tailor to your own needs, or make sure that all the points that he makes are in the procedures that your precinct has, but also to make sure that your precinct has good procedures in place. We don't want to go to a new system that has no understood way for the people running the precincts on how they're supposed to report up to their counties, how their counties are supposed to report up to their Secretary of State. And that would be a catastrophe.
Yeah. Well, so we've met with Colonel Smith, fantastic guy. I love his idea of building the audit right into the count by conducting the manual count under high definition live stream video. Everybody can watch, and then you can archive it, and everybody can watch after the fact. Everybody can be confident that the election results are really what the election results should be. So we've had him speak to a number of our conservative senators in a private session, which I was privileged to be a part of. When he was done with them, he had one of our senators reaching across the table, leaning across the table saying, "You're scaring me." And another one saying to the deputy secretary in charge of the elections, "Do we have to use those machines?" These people were scared, and he didn't try to scare them. He just told them the truth.
Yes.
And then he spoke at a couple of our committee hearings in the legislature the following day. Love the guy. So he is coming to the state again tomorrow. We're having a big rally in one of our counties in the middle of the state. This county, a number of people in this county are really pushing hard to get the machine out of their vote. out of their election. And so we're going to have a big rally tomorrow, and really looking forward to it.
Let me explain something really fast that I want everybody to really understand. Actually, a couple things really fast. The first thing is that education is key. You have to understand what's been happening to us, because an educated population that understands what's been going on is the one thing that this system cannot abide. Because once you understand how the magic's happening, then you don't get fooled by the same trick, if that makes sense. If the magician, pulls a rabbit out of his hat and offers you the hat, but you know that he had it up his sleeve before he reached into the hat, you'll see it every single time after that. So it's very important that we educate our public as to how this happened to us, so that they can help identify these cheats that are going on, explain them to their neighbors, catch them in the act, all of these things, to move forward. Even after we get these machines out, we have to understand how the whole process of how this happened. The second thing is that we also have to understand that the machines are doing the optimizing. The machines are what allows these races to have this same profile every single time, neck and neck, like a horse race, 49, 50, 50, 49, all the way up until somebody gets this jump at the last minute. And wins. So or that there's a bigger gap, and then somebody gets a large bonus at the end that just pushes them across the line at a 50.1, 49.8 win. If we get rid of the machines, but we don't clean up the voter rolls and get rid of the mail-in, the only solution for the people that are doing this to us would be to send more mail-in votes in. The mules would have larger drop-offs, and then there would be bigger wins, like 58% for the person we know shouldn't win because it was stuffed so hard. Okay. So we need to make sure we understand that just if we go to something without machines, we have to make sure we understand the whole process and we get rid of all of the modes that allow this to be happening to us, so that we don't get rid of the machines. And then all of a sudden, the people we know are not as popular win by bigger margins, because that's what we'll see happen.
Great. Thank you very much. That was a great answer. So we're headed into a primary here in the state in a few days. Let's see, next week. And we're running on election integrity, which presupposes we don't have election integrity. And some people are saying, how do you expect to win when you're preaching that our election system is broken? And so what is your response to that?
It's very, very difficult. The thing is that we have to make sure that people understand: do not vote in person. I mean, do not vote early. Do not vote by mail. Do not request a ballot and hold on to it to take it in. If you request your mail-in ballot and you have the ballot, the people that are doing this cheat, they've profiled you. They know how you're going to vote the minute you ask for a ballot. They don't need to hack in and see. There's no hacking required in this that's going on. So you go in and you get a ballot. They have, from the time you order the ballot, to make one of those mule ballots vote against you and cancel out your ballot. Early voting, same thing. Just because you go in and they see that you voted in person early, they still can profile you as a person. They see what you post on Facebook. They see who you donate to. They see who you don't donate to. We can profile pretty good how everybody's going to vote. So the minute they see your name has voted, they can take action to send in a ballot against you or not. The third thing is, make sure that you do vote in person. Make sure that you bring your friends. Make sure that you turn out. Make sure people that don't normally vote, you encourage them to come with you to support the great candidates like Mr. Borer here, and get them in place to make the changes that need to happen. And then we need to have better understanding of what's going on. If people come in and they go to vote and they're told that they're vote by mail, that they've already voted by mail, do not fill out a provisional ballot. You stand right there and you call the sheriff to report identity theft. If you go in and you find out that if people see that boxes of ballots are coming in late in the day, call the police. Have them find out right then where all those ballots came from, and if at all possible, get your technical people involved as poll watchers to see if they can monitor the systems, and if the systems begin to do anything like database replication or recounting or things like that we've seen in other machines, stop the election right there and call the sheriff that a crime is being committed as you speak. We don't need to wait until the election results come out anymore to figure out where the problem happened. We have enough knowledge now to know where the problems are happening.
So that I've been preaching along those lines as well, trying to get people to volunteer to be poll watchers, tabulation watchers, early vote counting watchers, in day of counting watchers. I actually applied to sit on the canvassing board, and I think everybody's lost on how important this canvassing board is, because you sit on that canvassing board, you're supposed to take a critical look at the entire election process. And if everything isn't as it should be, you should be asking all kinds of questions. And if things aren't as they should be, then you should make a huge case that this election should not be certified.
Absolutely. And have a very critical and very informed mind about how the canvassing is being structured. Again, this is offering the hat to you after the rabbit's been pulled out. You can inspect the hat all you want, but that's not where the magic is going to happen. When we have these things that are called risk limiting audits, whose risk are they limiting? We found with other systems that there were votes that were placed into the database that do not have corresponding ballot images. So therefore, the structure by that vendor is to have you pull out specific papers, and then you go validate those papers against the images in the votes. Mm-hmm. Well, that won't catch the votes that are in the system that have no images or paper affiliated with them. Yeah. So understanding the methodology and what's missing, what won't be caught by the methodology that's being proposed for the canvas, is equally as important.
Wow, that's great. So one of the public records requests, which is Nebraska's version of a FOIA request that I made, was for a list from my own county election commissioner, for a list of everyone who voted in 2020. So I want to reconcile this list of names with the number of voters, with the number of votes. We don't have that list. We've never been told that we need to create that list. We've never saved that list.
I've heard Dr. Frank. I heard Dr. Frank tell people to request that, and I was stunned when he said that, and that's not something that's commonly known. I mean, you would think that if you were the person running an election, that having an idea of a total at the end of all the people that voted would be a critical piece of information. And the fact that around the country, that's not just Nebraska, that's around the country, the clerks do not have the ability to produce that for their citizens is quite shocking.
Yeah, it is. I thought it was incredible. So I filed the request, and we had some correspondence by email, and then I decided to just call him on the matter, and he was shaking. He said, I even went to the secretary's office, called them up and asked them to help me out here, and they couldn't help him out either. So Nebraska elections are broken, everybody. They are absolutely broken, and they're cheating here just like they are everywhere else. So what else is on your heart, Draza? Do you want to go back to how the reporting takes place at night, or do you? Somebody asked a question about Jay Valentine and whether you're acquainted with his fractal programming and his crunching of our election data. You don't have to answer that. I'm just throwing some things.
I have seen it. I honestly don't know what fractal has to do with the registration system. And I tell you what, I've been watching you guys' grassroots groups, and the grassroots groups from each state and them working together with other states are doing just an amazing job. So I would use all the tools that are available, but make sure that you understand. Make sure that you do not use a tool for anything that you're doing that you don't understand what it's telling you and how it got the data from there. That's how we got here in the first place, having machines that we just push things in and a result comes out and we don't understand the full process. So please make sure you're aware of that. I see a question about a CVR. A CVR is a cast vote record. It's a report that's produced by each of the vending machines. I keep saying that because they just spit out votes like gumballs. Voting machines that allow you to see every single vote, the votes on every single ballot as that ballot was added to your total. This becomes very interesting to see how your particular election stacked up over time. And we're seeing the same trends that explain why the databases appear to be shuffled inside of the machines to hide some of the traditional cheating profiles that are detected by accepted analytics. And Nebraska's poll books online, I don't know that one about Nebraska in particular.
Yeah, they are.
They are. So then if the Nebraska poll books are online, the minute you come into your polling office for early voting.
Well, excuse me, I'm sorry. I misread the question. Certainly our registration rolls are online. Poll books, I'm going to have to say no until I know better.
We'll say we don't know.
Okay.
And we'll find out.
Yeah. I imagine that they create the poll books prior to the election from the county portion of the state voter registration rolls, right?
It depends on if this is done homegrown or if it's done by some company software that you purchase. I apologize, I don't know Nebraska's structure well enough right now, but we could look into that and get a response back that's a more technically correct response.
Yeah. So we're going to see you on Saturday.
We'll see you on Saturday. Thank you so much for inviting me to Nebraska. I'm so looking forward to it.
We're very much looking forward to it. And what do you want me to say to Sean Smith tomorrow when I see him?
Oh, just tell him to make sure that he makes everyone else know how important those procedures are in place, because we want to move to the hand counts. We want people to be successful. We want people to be working together as a community. And without those procedures in place, that sets it up for failure, with people saying, see, we have to go back to the machines. So let's make sure everyone's well educated and well prepared to take that excuse away.
One more thing, while you were talking about making sure everybody understands that whatever they're using, understands anything that they are using to work through this process. I like something that Sean said recently when he said, well, go ask your election clerk how that software works in that machine. And when she tells you no, then you know that she's not in control. If you don't understand something, you're not in control.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. I thought that was a great, simple little point, because they all just tout the same mantra that they've been told to tout from the secretary. Our machines are not connected to the internet, and nobody ever asked the question, what's the error rate on these machines? Here's go ahead.
But in making sure that we understand the system well enough to change that question, instead of asking if they're connected to the internet, make sure everybody understands the right question to ask is, are these machines capable of electronic communication with any device that's not in this building? And if you can answer that question, then you understand the structure.
Okay. I found an interesting piece of information last night, and that was that in April of 2020, ESNS went scorched earth. They literally fired everybody and brought in an entire new crew. So this is that makes me think they were getting ready for November in a special way.
Wow.
You ever heard that?
I have not before.
Yeah, that comes from a very reliable source, that they fired everybody in April and brought in all new people.
Amazing. Yes, this is going to be very interesting. The short-term future here is going to be very interesting to see how these things shape up, if we can get rid of the machines, or what happens if we are still using them. But understand, this is a multi-front effort. We're still working to expose everything that's happened to us and correct everything that's happened to us while we handle what's moving forward at the same time. Very difficult. We need everyone involved. We need everybody to come and help.
All right. Well, thank you for being with us today. Look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Same. Thank you for having me.
God bless.